Hi, I'm Julia, and welcome back to my booktube channel, NB Library. Today I'm doing the mid-year book freakout tag. It's a little bit late, this is going up in mid-July, but that's still mid-year. And appropriately for the Seattle area, it's after July 5th, and that means summer has officially started, hence my getup. This is a very popular tag here on BookTube, and I'll link to the original creators of the tag down below. I've kind of assembled my own list of the questions, and I threw in some booktuber related ones as well that are more relevant to my channel rather than the books I've been reading. The first question is, what is the best book that you've read so far in 2026? And I talked about this all the way at the beginning of the year in my January wrap-up, but it is still The Johnson 4 by Christina Hammonds Reid. When I read it, I knew it was going to be my favorite book of the year, even though I read it like the first half of the first month of the year, but it is still genuinely the best book that I've read this year. One of the best books I've ever read. The Johnson 4 follows a family of 3 boys, and they are joined by the ghost of a child who also was a singer and performer and wants to join their boy band. And the story follows all of the members of the family, the parents as well, from the late 60s to the 90s, and all of the trials and tribulations that they go through. The youngest son, River, becomes the breakout star and one of the most famous performers in the world. He's also gay and keeping that under wraps. This book is based on, obviously, the Jackson 5 and a little bit based on Michael Jackson. But genuinely, if I think about the last line of this book, I will tear up. Like, I can cry on command now because I just have to think about this book, and I will get choked up. It's that good. And it's not that it's sad. I mean, it does have sad parts, but it is like the beauty and catharsis is what makes me cry, and it kind of reminds me of things like The Good Place in a way, where it's like, how do you know you've lived a good life, and how do you grow, and how do you like forgive the people around you? Yeah, it's amazing, and I wish more people would read it. What has been your favorite sequel of the first half of the year? And if you saw my anticipated releases vlog back in May, I think it was May, this might not be a surprise, but it was Platform Decay by Martha Wells, one of my 4 5-stars of the year. And I said in that video, and I think it's still true, favorite book of the series, favorite book in the Murderbot Diaries. This was so good. It was exactly what I've wanted from a Murderbot book. Smaller cast, locations that were like varied and interesting, a little bit longer too, so we have more time to like sit in the plot. Murderbot has changed and grown so much as a character while still retaining its wonderful voice that made us all fall in love with it. We get to see more of Dr. Mensah's family, give Nana Naja a gun, and there were just some real like air-punching moments that made me so happy, and that's why it gets a 5-star. Is there a new release you haven't read yet but are really excited to? And mine is going to be a little bit of a cheat because this book isn't out yet, but I do have the ARC, and that is the ARC for A Snake Among Swans by Hannah Kaner. I seem to find myself reading one fantasy trilogy a year, and last year it was the Fallen Gods trilogy by Hannah Kaner, and so I was like watching her career and seeing if she was going to come out with anything this year. She just finished her trilogy last year, but she's already up and running with a new book. I think it's going to be the first in a duology, and it comes out in the fall. So A Snake Among Swans is about a woman from a like conquered country who goes to her conqueror's court, and I think she's engaged to someone but then falls in love with his sister, so it is sapphic. I'm looking forward to it because it's high fantasy, it's queer, it's from an author that I know and trust. I have so many interests in books these days and so many things that I want to read. So it's hard for me to fit in all of the like epic fantasy that I want to read, but I do love it very much and I'm often craving it, which is why I'm so excited to get to this book. What is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? And so for this, I'm going to list books that I don't have the arc for. So the first one is absolutely 100% Daggerbound by T. Kingfisher, my most anticipated book of the decade, I keep saying. This is the sequel to Sword Heart, one of my favorite books of all time. And when I read Sword Heart, it had been self-published and I didn't know if there was ever going to be a sequel. I mostly wanted a sequel because I knew that Zale was going to be in it, and Zale is my favorite character from Sword Heart. They are a non-binary cleric lawyer, and they're the best. And I was even more excited when the synopsis for Daggerbound was released, and it's gay. And not only is it gay, it has Learned Edmund from the Clocktor Wars duology. Truly the embodiment of, I'm gay because I hate women, you're gay because you like men, we are not the same. No. He had a lot of character growth in Clocktor Wars, but also it's very funny that the woman-hating guy is now gay. I'm sure that that will probably get brought up. I chose not to request the arc for this one because I want to read it the day it comes out and see everyone else talking about it. I also am on vacation the week that it comes out, and so I'm just gonna be spending that day reading this book. But honorable mentions to Astarion, also by T. Kingfisher. I pre-ordered this on Kobo and then I realized that the voice actor Neil Newborn was going to be reading the audiobook, so I canceled my pre-order and I'm getting it on Libro instead. And then also Becky Chambers' newest release in several years, As You Wake, Break the Shell, which is the first in a sapphic sci-fi duology. I'm so excited! And then one that's like a little bit more low-key, but that I am still excited about and that I have requested the arc for is American Hagwon by Min Jin Lee, who's the author of Pachinko. Do I have it here? I think I do. Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. This is the book that I always talk about when I talk about generational novels. I still need to watch the show that is the adaptation of this, but this is like the gold standard of generational stories for me. I think about it quite often, and so I was really excited to learn that this author is finally coming out with a new book. What is your biggest disappointment so far? I had a few books that like I've been looking forward to that I rated low, but I realized one that, if I'm being honest with myself, truly is my biggest disappointment. This was also in my anticipated releases vlog, and it is A Villain's Hope by S.E. McPherson. I don't know if you can tell in that video, and the rating that I ended up giving it, looking back on it, is not really reflective of how I felt about the book. I loved the first half, and then the second half was quite bad, quite disappointing. It had White Room syndrome. A main character had a huge personality change that seemed to have no consequences to it. People fast traveled across the map. So I gave it 3.75 in that video. In my mind, it might be lower than a 3, honestly. Like, the ending really put a sour taste in my mouth. Not that it was like problematic or anything, it was just like not well executed. But I will read the third book. I feel like the author might be able to pull back up out of the nosedive, and I'm excited for the book from Victoria's perspective. It's so weird to call her that. No one calls her that. Just call her Penny. That's her name. For this next question, what is your biggest surprise so far? I know it's for like a specific book that surprised you, but I wanted to also talk about like bookish things. First of which was the number of arcs that I've been getting. I got a NetGalley account at the beginning of the year. The Johnson 4 was one of the first arcs that I got, so it really set me off on a good note. And I've been just so privileged and lucky to get arcs. I've gotten almost everyone that I've requested. Still no sign of the Flower Court, by the way, although for me periodically checking like the Goodreads Storygraph and NetGalley page, I don't know if anyone's received a copy yet because there haven't been any reviews, and I'm sounding a little bit unhinged right now, but to our publishing group, I just reviewed another book that you gave me, so now would be a great time to approve my ARC request. Another surprise, like in general about my bookish life, is that I've really started to enjoy literary fiction this year. This is a genre that I used to turn up my nose at, and I think among people who like genre fiction, you know, sci-fi, fantasy, horror, people talk about literary fiction as being about like a white male English professor who gets a divorce. They must be talking about some archetypal book, but sometimes when people mention a like archetypal trope, they can't actually point back to anything that they've read that fits that trope, which makes me go, huh. But in particular, I've really been enjoying queer literary fiction. Like, you could argue that the Johnson 4 is literary fiction. It has those elements. Like, to me, it also has like historical fiction and like horror speculative elements. But I also loved Small Joys by Elvin James Mensah and the works of Mia Mckenzie, which are like general historical lit fic. But yeah, put a queer character in as the main character of a literary fiction book, and gosh, I've been lapping that up. Maybe it's just, you know, I turned 30 this year and literary fiction is suddenly like a lot more relatable. I think you need to go through some things before like you enjoy lit fic. I don't know. On the like actual book side of things, like what book was the most surprising, I gotta say, and this is a bit of a funny one, was Mad Sisters of Essie by Tashan Mehta, because one, I thought it was queer and it's not, and two, it's just such a weird book. I had like a laughing fit trying to describe the plot of this book in my Gaze in Space video, which I partially read that book for, but it's not gay, so I didn't end up fully reviewing it. The like framing device that's the first and last third of that book are just wild. And then the middle third is quite linear, and it's a quite like linear story, but the stuff on either end, man, we got like a whale that is also the Infinity Train. We've got a world where if you tap your ear and say a certain word, you'll end up in a museum of memories. We've got a black hole that only children can traverse, like truly out there stuff. And so that was my biggest surprise. Favorite new author, I have two. First, and these are both authors that I read last year but really started to pick up momentum this year. So first, I'll show you my Mary Robinette Kowal collection. Except for one, these are all books that I actually read this year. I really try and read widely, and so when I really glom onto books by the same author, like, you know I'm committed because I'm also trying to read like lots of other new things. I've not read like everything Kowal has written because she has a historical romance series that I'm not super interested in, but I love her sci-fi. And The Faded Sky is the only book that I've reread this year, although I didn't reread the beginning, so I'm not counting it. And also, an author that I started reading last year and has become a favorite author this year is Kate Elliott, the author of the Witch Rose Duology and the Crown of Stars series, and The Flower Court. To our publishing group, please at me. For newest favorite character, I gotta go with Doris from These Heathens. God, that girl knows her own mind. Doris is a 17-year-old who becomes pregnant and enlists her English professor's help in going to, I think, Memphis to get an abortion, and she kind of has a like whirlwind weekend there in the city. She meets Martin Luther King and James Baldwin, learns a lot about her English teacher and her English teacher's ex-girlfriend, and Doris undergoes a lot of character development, but she never changes like her level of confidence and like sassiness. It's just an excellent narrative voice. I also want to shout out Muddy from Small Joys, rugby playing asexual king. I love him. I've noticed I love, like, I don't even know how to put this, fictional men who are bears, like a big dude who's like usually gay. I'm talking Muddy from these Heathens. I'm talking the guy from the Silver in the Wood duology that's not the guy named Silver, and I can't remember his name now. And also Burn from the Winnowing Flame trilogy. I really like big men in a platonic way. For a book that made you cry, I mean, obviously the Johnson 4, as I already mentioned, Crying on Command, but I also gotta shout out Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I was crying on a train. The Invisible Wild by Nikki Vanderkar. I was crying while driving. One and Only by Maurene Goo. I was crying just in my living room. It wasn't that dramatic. And most of these are like, I'm crying at like a big moment of not even like sad emotions, just like a really emotional moment. Like in Atmosphere, it's when there's a big moment between Joan and her niece. In The Invisible Wild, it's like tears of joy at the end and of like community coming together. And then in One and Only, it's maybe the only romance novel that's ever made me cry. The like declaration of love in that made me like ugly cry. For a book that made you happy, I wanted to go with one that wasn't necessarily a favorite, but just one that made me like giggle and kick my feet. And that was Proper Scoundrels by Allie Therin. I read 2 trilogies of Allie Therin's historical romance novels this year, and Proper Scoundrels is the first one in the second trilogy, so it's introducing this new couple, Wesley and Sebastian. Sebastian has magic and knows magic exists. Wesley does not at the beginning of the book, and Wesley is a prickly little bastard. Sebastian is a ray of sunshine, and them like coming together and Wesley like slowly becoming slightly less prickly and an asshole. For what book do you want to read by the end of the year? I have like several challenges going right now. I've got my 26 books to read in 2026, which I might do a future vlog for, but like my number one, because it's the one that I'm like the most intimidated by, is The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. This is extremely long. This marks when the index starts at page 543. It is a long, dense nonfiction book. I've had this on my TBR for years and years, and this is gonna be the year. I got it on audio in college, and I got the CDs from the library and burned them to my computer, but my local library system, now that I'm not living in my college town, doesn't have a digital copy of this audiobook, which is a shame because it's read by Robin Miles, the GOAT. So I'm just gonna have to get through it with my own eyeballs. And I should probably like do this one in stages or something. Like I should probably not attempt to read this all in one go and do it in sections, and then it will not be so intimidating. I say this, but I might just power through, I don't know. Come December, I might be picking this book up. And then I've got 2 booktube related videos. What's your favorite video that you've made so far this year? And I've actually alluded to it a few times now, but it is my anticipated releases video where I read Platform Decay, A Villain's Hope, or A Villain's Promise, whatever the fuck that book is called, A Longing Speaking Silence, and Burn the Sea. I rewatch my own videos. Like that's partly why I make them, is to have like a video diary of what my thoughts were at the time. And in my review of Platform Decay, I'm just so happy that I've come back to watch that clip, because I'm just like gushing about the book. And I think, or I hope, it's easy to tell like how much fun I'm having in that video. It was a really nice weekend that I filmed it, and I got an arc from Tor 4 days before Longing Speaking Silence came out. Man, if you do that to me with the Flower Court, I'm gonna be so mad. And then last question is any upcoming videos that you're excited to make? So I wanted to give you a little sneak peek on what I've been working on. One that I've had in the works for months and just haven't found time to like film it and fit it on the schedule is I have this video where I'm not gonna read anything. I have this ranking system that I came up with for what makes a book like Lord of the Rings. Like what's a good Lord of the Rings read alike, and like what are the qualities from Lord of the Rings that I like, and how well does this book adhere to those qualities? And then there's a secret other category that it's going to be ranked in. And then a video that I don't know when I'm going to have the chance to make it. I have things planned out kind of through like the end of the summer. I've seen people do a similar video to this, but I don't know that I've actually seen this specific setup where people will get recommendations from like booktubers, or they'll pay a service and get a recommendation. And I have a few book blogs that I really like to check out that I'll like visit periodically. There's one that I look at like every week, and I want to read books that I've found on that blog. I actually already read one, Mr. Loverman by Bernardine Evaristo, that I read last month. I got from one of these book blogs, and I really liked it. So I'm excited to do that, and excited to be able to highlight some of these book blogs, which are like such a pillar of the bookish online community and they don't often get their flowers. That is gonna wrap up my mid-year book freakout tag. Not so much freaking out. I feel like I'm doing good on all of my goals. All of my challenges are proceeding. I'm like ahead of schedule on my 26 books to read in 2026, which will leave time for the Warmth of Other Suns. But coming on next week is a vlog that I'm really excited about, that I've been working on for a while, and I hope you're gonna like it. But if you liked this video, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next week.